So why do record labels keep giving copyright strikes to Rick Beato and other YouTubers who promote their songs? I mean, it's free marketing, isn't it? Well, when you look at it from the way record labels, or rather, from the way big companies think, you'll see it's rather obvious. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. I'm Utkarsh coming to you from Singapore. Now, I'm of course familiar with Rick Beato's channel. I am also familiar with some of the troubles that he keeps having of record labels constantly copyright striking his videos. And to the layperson, it does seem rather silly because whether it's Rick Beato or other YouTubers, a lot of people are doing a lot of good work to actually spread awareness of the older songs, the golden era of music, rock music, pop music, 80s, 70s, whatever. So why do record labels keep shooting themselves in the foot? Well, the answer lies in how big companies, or rather, how big companies that are publicly traded think.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Now, quick background here. I am very familiar with this world because I did work in the corporate world for a long time, specifically in senior leadership, specifically heading marketing for a very famous brand in this part of the world, Japan, Korea, and a few other countries. So I'm very familiar with this process. I understand other people may not be. So let me give 2 or 3 caveats. Caveat number 1 is there is a way you want the world to be, and there's a way the world is. I'm very idealistic. I want the world to be a certain way, but I also recognize the way the world really is. This is going to be one of the stories of how the world really is. Secondly, I will criticize some of the behaviors that capitalism, shareholder capitalism, late stage shareholder capitalism leads us into. But let me be clear, I am a big fan of capitalism. I'm not advocating for a communist utopia because it simply does not exist. With that in mind, when you're in a big company, you are essentially trying to do one of two things. It boils down to that. You're trying to either increase the sales or you're trying to decrease the cost. Because the more sales and lesser cost means more profit, means more shareholder value, higher share price, higher compensation for everyone involved. This is how all big companies, especially those that are publicly traded, work. It's a simple fact. And this number, which is how much profit you're generating, whether by increasing sales or reducing cost, is measured not in absolute. It's measured versus previous period, which means it's measured versus last year versus last quarter. If you look at how share prices and stock prices work, analysts and Wall Street is constantly looking for how did this company do versus the previous quarter versus the previous year. So it's not about absolutely making amount of money. It's about how are you doing versus the base, which is the previous quarter, previous semester, previous year. Got it? Now, with that in mind, think of how people are looking, or specifically how record labels are looking at all the things that they're looking at. They're looking at how do I increase my sales? Maybe I can sell more records or more streaming deals. I can sell more concerts, more merchandise, and I can reduce my costs. That's how they're looking at it. Now, when it comes to the matter of these sort of YouTubers, whether it is Rick Beato, whether it's other people who are using the video, what is it to the record label? They're looking at it as, hey, there are so many YouTube videos, there is so much stuff out there. If I was to just comb through it, I'm probably going to find few uses of this. I just need to hire some cheap manpower, some cheap agency, and even if it's only $30 for this video or $60 for that video, just because of the scale of the number of videos that are out there, I'm probably going to find something that justifies me investing money behind a manpower, or maybe even an algorithm at this point. Maybe the algorithm can do it, that can find all these snippets of people using our music, and then we can $30 here, $40 there, it all adds up. It is a revenue building item for very little cost. Now, you're probably thinking about the counter argument. The counter argument is, why would you go and copyright strike all of these videos that are spreading so much awareness, doing so much free marketing for your music? Songs that are spreading about Queen, what makes Queen's song great, what makes Led Zeppelin great. Why are you stopping all of this? The answer is simple. Because you can't measure it. Whatever free marketing that Rick Beato or any other YouTuber is doing for the record labels, it is already baked into the base. Right? They have been doing free marketing for Led Zeppelin or Queen or, I don't know, Aerosmith or whoever else it might be. The channel has been doing free marketing for them for years. So whatever was the impact of this free marketing, it's already built into whether it is the amount of streams that the artists are getting or whether it is the lives. Well, some of the old artists don't do live shows anymore, but maybe the values of the catalog or whatever. Point is, all of this free marketing is already built into the base. So, from the perspective of the record label executive, they're thinking, oh, actually, probably they're not even thinking that far. They're just thinking that, hey, there is small amounts of revenue to be made, and they're not thinking about the likely terrible impact of cutting off all of this free marketing, because if cutting off the free marketing doesn't affect you immediately. As a marketer, I can tell you, you stop running an ad today, it's not that your sales will fall off the cliff tomorrow. It takes a long time for people to forget. So for the person looking for a short-term win, which is to get more profit or more revenue versus the previous period, it makes a lot more sense for me to cut off, or rather to actually try and make little bits of money from all of these tiny YouTubers with very little cost, versus worrying about what is the impact of cutting off this free marketing. It's very silly. It's very short term thinking. I actually am not a fan of such short term thinking. I think this kind of short term profit based thinking leads to a lot of destruction for a lot of companies. So I'm personally not a fan, but I can see how, in the absence of having vision, in the absence of good leadership, and more importantly, an absence of perhaps a general conscience that some executives could have. Especially, I don't understand it. If you're in the music industry, I would hope that you have some interest in music. Perhaps you don't. But in the absence of that kind of thinking, strategic thinking, you could probably do this stupidity. You could basically go and shut off all these YouTubers who are reviewing all of your songs or whatever. And in the short term, yes, you gain $30 per video, $20 per video, whatever. But what you're doing is you're cutting off all the views that will lead to more people being interested in your music, and that will continue to sustain your business for the future. So it's a very silly thing to do. But because you cannot measure how much this free marketing is giving you, because cutting off this free marketing in the short term doesn't do anything to your revenue, but trying to earn small amounts of money from each of these little pieces earns you money in the short term, people tend to prioritize the short term. So the long and short of it is that as much as Rick Beato complains, there's nothing is going to change, because for the record labels, it's going to be the same calculus, because they're not calculating the value of the free marketing. Probably nobody's thinking that strategically, unfortunately. They're all just calculating dollar and cents per video. All these YouTubers, are they really doing fair use or not? So they're just doing dollar and centing it and getting all the money. Is there a solution? I think the only solution could be, if I was to put on again an executive's hat, is Rick Beato would have to make it painful for the executive. Put it another way. Today, for them, all they have to do is invest a little bit of money in some manpower, and that person or whatever that algorithm can troll YouTube, troll the internet, and earn them money, much more money than they invest behind the manpower or algorithm. If he makes it prohibitive for them to do this, say he was to countersue them for basically, I don't know, I have no knowledge of the legal world, but if he was to countersue them and put a cost item that, hey, if this record label is challenging fair use for all of these songs, and somebody is challenging them back and perhaps suing them for, challenging them in an unfair way, and it basically creates a cost item for the manager, that they're like, okay, my choice is, if I want to really recover all of these small monies from all of these small videos, I could invest this amount of money, but there's a risk that I may have to pay $1 million lawsuit. Then the manager thinks, oh, okay, is it really worth for me to risk $1 million lawsuit, or whatever the number is, don't quote me on exactly this, versus the small amount of money that I can recover from potentially claiming fair use. Then you change the behavior. So what Rick Beato really would have to do is actually create a painful loss-making item, whether it be the threat of a lawsuit, whether it may be real money that they may have to pay. Then the managers, then the executives will change their behavior. Otherwise, you can complain to your audience all that you want, but the record labels don't care, because they're not strategic enough to measure the great impact of marketing that you may be doing for them. And they're very happy to dollar cent their way and earn a small bit of money from you here and there. All right, folks, I hope this was helpful. I thought I would share this because I can actually draw on my experience having been a senior leader in an American large Fortune 500 company. So hopefully this was helpful. I'll see you next time.